Câți dintre noi chiar știu ce au de făcut în cazul unei crize? Indiferent dacă vorbim despre dezastre naturale, un atac cibernetic, o pană majoră de curent sau chiar un război, foarte puțină lume are cunoștințele necesare să supraviețuiască. Finlandezii au poate cea mai bine pregătită populație să facă față unor situații critice. Modelul finlandez de pregătire a fost propus la nivelul Uniunii Europene în contextul actual pentru a fi adaptat la toate statele membre. Ce înseamnă acest lucru și ce avem de fapt de învățat? Primim răspunsuri de la Leena Liukkonnen, ambasadorul Finlandei la București. Sunt Cristina Cileacu, începe Pașaport diplomatic. Leena Liukkonen, Ambassador of Finland in Romania, welcome to Diplomatic Passport.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Ambassador, your country presented to the European Union at the European Commission a new proposal called Preparedness European Union, and that means that the Finnish model when it comes to preparedness must be implemented at the level of entire European Union. This is a crisis preparation in case of this proposal from your country. The idea behind it is exactly what?
Thank you very much for the very good question, because preparedness is something that I think it's engraved in the soul of all Finns. We tend to be rather pessimistic people, and we expect, crises happen every now and then. And that's why we ourselves think that we need to be prepared for all kinds of situations in our personal lives, but also in the lives of a country. And now, of course, we'd like to have some kind of preparedness together with other European nations. And that is the idea. We do not wish, of course, to push our thinking completely to others, because you have, all of us, have different geographical position, and our societies do differ from one another. But there are things that we can learn from one another, and that is why I think that the report that President Niinistö, our former President of the Republic, prepared is a good point of discussion. And I understand that this is something that the European Council will look at hopefully already in December, and then later on. And of course the European Commission will then have an important role in how to take this idea forward. I mean, this idea of a preparedness union.
Well, this idea was already taken forward by the Nordic countries. Your neighbor Sweden also printed a brochure with information for the entire population of the country. Each house in Sweden received such a brochure. In Finland, all this information are available on the official website. But what stays behind this mentality? Because in the end it's a matter of mentality when it comes to Finnish people, but also to the entire Nordic part of Europe, of this being ready for anything.
That again is something that's, I think it stems from our historic experience. And it's not just a question of thinking of the worst kind of crisis. We are thinking of also natural disasters. We are thinking of harsh climate that we have. It might be very, very cold with lots of snow in winters, and there might be storms that cut you off electricity for several days, even if you are in the countryside. So it might take several days to be fixed. So it means that you are prepared to take care of yourself and your family until you're able to turn to you're able to turn back to normal life, more or less, in harsh conditions. So I think this is the kind of mentality that we have inherited from my parents and grandparents and so forward, so on, because we have had this experience in life that crises do happen, and we need to be prepared for all kinds of things.
So if we take the example of the Finnish population, can you explain to the Romanian public how a normal family in Finland, it doesn't matter if it lives in a big city like Helsinki or somewhere in a remote area, is prepared for, let's say, a natural disaster or a big storm or, I don't know, something like a power line being cut off?
Yes. Well, what we have is this recommendation of 72 hours, which means that all families, all households should have essential matters that they can survive and actually they can stay in their place, their home, or then even go to a shelter, and they can stay there for 72 hours without outside help. That means that you store up water, bottled water, which is a tricky thing, and I'm the first one to admit that I'm myself very bad at storing up bottled water in Finland, because we have such good quality tap water and we drink that. So, but anyway, water is something you definitely need in 72 hours for all kinds, not just drinking, but also, you know, using, washing yourself and using the toilet and so on. And then you have foodstuffs, you have batteries, you have candles, you have torches, this kind of things that help you, you know, get by the 72 hours that might be needed in order to the power to be restored.
Well, in the official website of Finland, where the population can find all this information about how to cope with various crises, I saw that there is a big range of crises, from natural disaster to cyber attacks, or to even the ultimate crisis, which could be a possible military attack or a war. How can a simple person, a person that is, reads all this information, be able to cope? I mean, how is the response of the population in Finland to all these instructions?
The response has been very positive. You know, we are not usually known to be a very social people, but what we do have, we'll have all kinds of associations and clubs and that sort of things, and I can tell you that a lot of them are involved in how to make your ordinary life better, how to learn to, you know, prepare a nice meal for your family and that sort of thing. So in that connection, you are connected with others, and that is a good environment to also go through this kind of issues. And they are not to alarm people, but it's to be prepared in the case if something should happen. And I can tell you that these electricity power cuts do happen when there is a storm. There is a possibility, definitely. Not so much perhaps in bigger cities, but those do happen as well.
Your country was, since you have the longest border with Russia, you kept your neutrality for quite some time, till last year when you become the member of North Atlantic Alliance, and that adds more security not only to Finland but to the rest of us as well, since your country has quite a well-prepared army.
Yes.
Does something change at the level of the perception of the population in Finland when it comes to belonging to an alliance like NATO? I mean, usually people are used to take care of their safety in your country, but now there is a bigger umbrella of security. It matters, or it's less well received in Finland?
It matters very much. I mean, there was, when Finland decided to apply for a membership in the North Atlantic Alliance, then you know, the numbers in the Finnish Parliament were really astonishing. There were just a couple of votes against it, and the population had overall extremely high approval rate. And it's still, I mean, just this week there was the latest poll that was conducted, and it was still the popularity of NATO is still over 70%. So definitely people do feel that it has increased our security to belong to the alliance, and that we are in this together. And this is one of the reasons why we think it's very important that all NATO members are supporting one another and we not just have the Article 5 to support us in the case of crisis, but also so that we can practice. We have training missions together, and I'm sure you're aware that in June and July, for the first time ever, Finnish air forces were outside Finland, actually stationed, and were doing patrolling and air policing and air shielding in the Black Sea. So that was a very good experience, and actually the rotation, I was told, was rather quick, because they wanted as many of our people to have the experience. And because we are still a new member, we have a lot to learn from you, for instance.
And what has changed since your country became a member of North Atlantic Alliance, a member of NATO, in the relationship with Russia? Did you receive more threats? Were the Russians okay with the idea in the end? How is going? On the field, I mean.
I'd say that we were not surprised that they weren't too happy about it, and there have been, let's say, all kinds of incidents that might have pointed to their disapproval of Finland's sovereign choice of our people, that we independently and sovereignly decided to do this, to become members in NATO, but I think they can only, blame themselves for launching this aggression against Ukraine.
And how is the Russian propaganda getting along in Finland? Do the Finnish people react well when it comes to block the Russian propaganda?
I'd say that we are rather well vaccinated against Russian propaganda, to tell you the truth. We just had presidential elections in January and February, and I can tell you that the propaganda didn't go through very well. I mean, our people are so, let's say, wary and suspicious of things that are trying to undermine the basic values of our country, that it doesn't go very well. So we might have some other kind of attacks. But that kind of attack didn't happen. At least it hasn't succeeded so far. Of course, we all need to be vigilant, all of us.
Back to the preparedness of your country. Under the capital Helsinki, there is another city, meaning that you are ready with a lot of bunkers and shelters for the entire population. You even have a hockey field and a pool underground for a population to resist. How is this taken care of? It's a specific unit of the city that takes care of this underground city. How is being kept ready to function?
Yes, to tell you the truth, I have visited some of that, and I can tell you that it works quite well. As you say, that during the time that it's not needed for that purpose, it's been, these areas are being used, let's say, for parking or for sports. Like there are not just hockey fields, but there are tennis courts and that sort of things.
So they are not closed to the public?
They are not entirely closed to the public. No, there are areas that are being used. But on the other hand, I can tell you that also ordinary houses, blocks of flats that have been built during the last decades, they have basements that actually can. The people store their stuff in there, people who live in the buildings, but there is a possibility of finding shelter in your own building, you know, in case something happens. And I think that is a pretty unique thing. Of course, it's a possibility in a country where we don't really get earthquakes and that sort of thing. So, and we have very strict, construction rules, how you do that. But all the newer buildings need to have this kind of a place for people who live in the building. So it's not just that, for instance, in Helsinki, that everybody could be fitted into the big public shelters that are there. Ready. Yes, it's the city who takes care of that, city of Helsinki, and they are special authorities who are looking after that it functions. And I can tell you, I'm happy to say that it functions quite well. But we haven't really needed that except for these sports and other things. And of course, parking is always a problem also in Helsinki, I can tell you.
Well, let's hope those shelters will not be needed soon. But
absolutely.
You are an ambassador in Romania, and also you cover Republic of Moldova from Bucharest. Correct. Getting to know a little the way we are here on this part of Europe, as personalities, we are quite different when it comes to the Nordic personalities. Mm-hmm. How do you think an announcement like this one, like preparedness in case of everything, of a crisis, being a natural one or being, as I said, an extreme one as the war, will be perceived here in a country like Romania or across the border in a country like Republic of Moldova?
Well, I think that the people I've talked to have understood that, hey, seriously, things happen, crises do happen in the world. It's just enough to watch the news and you notice that all kinds of crises and calamities do happen, and it doesn't have to be a question of military attack. You might have how to be prepared for, let's say, cyber attacks. This is something that's also very important for all of us to think in when we do use our computer, how we use our computer. I think that's very good to think about. I think people all over Europe understanding quite well this need for being prepared for all kinds of things. And since Romania is a neighbor of Ukraine, where there's a war raging almost 3 years now, I think Romanians are very well aware, and of course, due to your history, that all kinds of things can happen, and you need to be prepared for that.
Well, speaking about the war in Ukraine, we are expecting on the 20th of January for the new administration in the United States. Donald Trump will take over again the presidency of America, and we expect as Europeans that the support of United States to be decreased or even stopped in case of Ukraine. Will European Union that already announced that will stand by Ukraine as much as needed be able to cope with this situation? Shall we get more involved into discussions about peace? What's the solution that Finland sees?
The way we see things is that definitely more of Europe is needed in any case when it comes to the war raging in Ukraine. And one of the things that I find important is to remember that when we're talking about peace, is that we need to take the interest of Ukraine and what Ukraine wants into consideration. So I think this is the most important thing. We Europeans need to support Ukraine for as long as it's needed, as long as Ukraine wants it.
Well, since you're here in Romania and you started your mission relatively recently, what is your mission here in Romania and, of course, Republic of Moldova across the border?
I'd say that it's to bring our nations closer together. And now being also military allies in NATO, I think that is a good opportunity also to increase our cooperation in security policy fields as well. But I'm also looking traditionally at issues such as education. I understand that there's still a very high interest in the Finnish education models, and we are doing quite a lot of school visits, for instance. I've been visiting a lot of schools here in Romania, not just in Bucharest, but also in other cities. And I find it very rewarding to see that when teachers maybe adopt some of the things that we use in our public schools, how kids respond to that and how they seem to be more interested in learning new things. But then I must admit that I'm also looking into business side of things, Finnish companies that are looking for new markets. And one is always thinking that it's in our mutual interest to have free trade, and as we have as European Union partners. So those are maybe the main things.
Ambassador Liukkonen, good luck with your mission, and thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you very much.
Atât pentru astăzi, dar rămânem în continuare online pe pagina de Facebook a emisiunii și pe contul nostru de X. Revenim cu subiecte noi din lumea diplomației și a politicii externe, vinerea viitoare de la 11:30 și reluare sâmbătă după miezul nopții. La revedere!